Have you ever noticed something strange about gardening in the middle of summer? Walk into almost any garden center in July, and you'll see seed racks pushed into the corner. Gardening magazines are already talking about fall cleanup. Even many YouTube channels have moved on from planting and started preparing for the end of the season. It's almost as if everyone has silently agreed that the growing season is over. But here's the surprising truth: for some flowers, July isn't the end of planting season. It's the perfect beginning. In fact, several of the flowers you're about to see germinate faster in warm July soil than they do in cool spring ground. Others bloom in as little as 6 weeks. One naturally helps protect nearby vegetables from underground pests. Another becomes a magnet for bees and butterflies when many other flowers begin slowing down. And the flower that earned the #1 spot isn't just beautiful, it can completely transform the look of your garden while asking for almost nothing in return. So don't put those seed packets away just yet. Today we're counting down 11 fast-growing flowers you can still plant right now for an incredible display later this season. Stick around until the end, because my #1 pick surprises almost everyone, and once you understand why it deserves that spot, you'll probably make room for it every single summer. Before we begin the countdown, there are 3 simple mistakes that prevent thousands of gardeners from succeeding with summer sowing. The first is adding too much fertilizer. It sounds helpful, but many flowering plants interpret rich soil as a signal to grow bigger leaves instead of producing more blooms. If your goal is flowers rather than foliage, average garden soil is often all you need. The second mistake is letting the soil dry out during the first week. Seeds don't need soaking wet soil, but they do need consistent moisture while they're waking up. Once they're established, many of today's flowers become surprisingly drought-tolerant, but those first few days are critical. And the third mistake is planting seeds too deeply. Tiny seeds contain only a limited amount of stored energy. Bury them too far below the surface, and they may never make it into the sunlight. Many flowers on today's list only need a light covering of soil, or simply firm contact with the surface, to germinate successfully. Keep those 3 tips in mind because they'll improve your results with almost every flower we're about to cover. Now let's begin the countdown. Number 11. Larkspur. This flower is unlike almost everything else on today's list. While most summer flowers are racing to take advantage of hot weather, Larkspur is quietly preparing for something completely different. The season's ahead. Many gardeners struggle with Larkspur because they force it into a spring schedule. They refrigerate seeds, start them indoors, or transplant young seedlings, only to end up disappointed. Nature already knows exactly what to do. When you sow Larkspur in late July, the seeds settle into warm soil before gradually experiencing the cooler temperatures that naturally encourage healthy growth. Instead of fighting nature, you're working with it. Months later, those tiny seeds reward your patience with tall flower spikes that seem almost too beautiful to be real. If you've ever admired old-fashioned cottage gardens filled with elegant towers of blue, pink, purple, and white flowers dancing in the breeze, chances are you were looking at Larkspur. Direct sowing is the secret. Don't transplant it. Don't disturb its roots. Simply sow it where you want it to bloom. Sometimes the simplest approach is also the most successful. And believe it or not, the next flower almost thrives on neglect. Number 10. California Poppy. Some flowers demand constant attention. California poppies practically ask you to leave them alone. Once established, they seem determined to prove how little they actually need. Warm July soil encourages quick germination, while the gradually cooling weeks ahead create nearly perfect conditions for flowering. But here's the mistake that ruins more California poppies than anything else. People transplant them. The moment these seeds germinate, they begin developing a long taproot that dislikes being disturbed. Move the plant, and you've already reduced its chances of thriving. Instead, scatter the seeds exactly where you want them. Lightly press them into the soil. Water gently. Then let nature handle the rest. The reward is months of silky blooms that open with the morning sun and close again in the evening, creating a garden that feels alive throughout the day. And here's another hidden bonus. Allow just a few flowers to mature naturally, and they'll produce dozens of seeds. By next season, those few flowers can quietly multiply into an even bigger display without you spending another dollar on seed packets. Sometimes the smartest investment in gardening is the one that keeps paying you back. But the next flower doesn't just decorate your garden, it secretly recruits helpers. Number 9. Sweet Alyssum. At first glance, sweet Alyssum doesn't seem particularly impressive. Its flowers are tiny. The plants stay low. Many gardeners walk right past it at the garden center. Then something amazing happens. The entire plant begins producing hundreds of tiny blooms that release a rich, honey-like fragrance, especially during cool mornings and evenings. Suddenly the garden feels different. But the real magic isn't happening where you can see it. It's happening in the air. Hoverflies arrive. Tiny parasitic wasps begin searching nearby plants. Ladybugs move in. Bees visit constantly. These beneficial insects aren't just enjoying the flowers. Many of them help reduce aphids and other common garden pests naturally, making sweet Alyssum one of the hardest working companion flowers you can grow. There's one important detail, though. Unlike many flower seeds, sweet Alyssum actually needs light to germinate well. Don't bury the seeds. Scatter them over the soil surface and gently press them into place. That one simple adjustment can dramatically improve your success. Now here's something interesting, we've started our countdown with 3 flowers that reward patience. But from this point forward, everything begins happening much faster. The next flower grows quickly, attracts pollinators by the hundreds, and produces one of the rarest flower colors you'll find in an ordinary garden. And now we're entering the part of the countdown where things start getting exciting. The remaining flowers don't just grow well in July, they grow fast. Several of them will begin transforming your garden before many people even realize planting season is still happening. Let's continue. Number 8. Borage. If you've never grown borage before, this might be the year that changes your mind forever. At first, it looks like just another flowering herb. Then the bees arrive. And they don't just visit occasionally. They keep coming back all day long. Here's why. Unlike many flowering plants that slowly refill their nectar over several hours, borage replenishes its nectar incredibly quickly. That means pollinators keep finding fresh rewards every time they return. The result is almost non-stop activity from sunrise until evening. Its brilliant blue, star-shaped flowers are something you don't often see in the garden, instantly creating contrast among yellow, orange, and red blooms. But beauty is only half the story. Borage is remarkably tough. Hot afternoons, dry spells, poor soil. It handles them far better than many gardeners expect because its deep roots search for moisture long after shallow-rooted plants begin struggling. And there's another bonus. The flowers have a refreshing cucumber-like flavor and can be added to salads, desserts, or even frozen into ice cubes for summer drinks. One plant, pollinator support, drought tolerance, edible flowers, beautiful color, that's a lot of value from one packet of seeds. But the next flower proves that sometimes doing less creates better results. Number 7. Nasturtiums. Imagine planting flowers in one of the poorest parts of your garden, never adding fertilizer, watering only when absolutely necessary, and somehow ending up with more flowers than ever before. That sounds impossible. Until you grow nasturtiums. Unlike many flowering plants, nasturtiums don't appreciate rich soil. Give them too many nutrients and they'll reward you with huge green leaves, but surprisingly few flowers. Place them in average or even poor soil, and everything changes. The plant senses limited resources and shifts its energy toward reproduction. In other words, more flowers. Bright orange, deep red, golden yellow, cream, even peach-colored blooms spill over garden beds, containers, raised beds, and hanging baskets. They're also completely edible. The flowers add a peppery flavor to salads. Young leaves can be eaten fresh. Even the seed pods are sometimes pickled as a substitute for capers. Few flowers work this hard. And if you're growing vegetables, here's another reason to love them. Many gardeners use nasturtiums as a trap crop, attracting aphids away from more valuable plants. Instead of attacking your vegetables, pests often gather on the nasturtiums first. Sometimes one flower quietly protects an entire section of the garden. But if you think that's impressive, wait until you see the next one. It doesn't just attract insects, it helps your entire garden become healthier. Number 6. Calendula. Some flowers are beautiful. Some flowers are useful. Calendula somehow manages to be both. Its cheerful golden and orange blooms brighten the garden just as many spring flowers begin fading away. But below the surface, something fascinating is happening. Calendula helps attract beneficial insects while also acting as a living distraction for certain pests, encouraging them to leave nearby vegetables alone. It's one of those quiet companion plants that rarely demands attention yet constantly contributes to a healthier garden ecosystem. Warm July soil helps seeds sprout quickly. Then, as temperatures slowly become more comfortable toward late summer and early autumn, calendula begins producing an incredible display of flowers. It's almost perfectly timed. And unlike many flowers that fade after one strong flush of blooms, calendula keeps rewarding gardeners who regularly remove spent flowers. The more you harvest, the more it blooms. Many gardeners also harvest the petals for homemade teas, herbal oils, natural skin products, and colorful garnishes. That means this flower doesn't stop being useful after it blooms. It continues serving long after it's been picked. Now here's something most people don't expect. Calendula flowers often begin closing before rainy weather arrives. For generations, gardeners watched them as a simple weather indicator long before modern forecasts existed. Nature has been giving us clues all along. We've now reached the halfway point in our countdown. And from here on, every flower is a true garden superstar. The next 5 are faster, more colorful, even easier to grow, and one of them naturally improves the health of nearby vegetables without asking for anything in return. Now we've reached the top 5. If you've watched this far, you've already discovered flowers that attract pollinators, improve your garden naturally, and thrive during summer. But these next 5 are in a completely different league. They're the flowers that make neighbors stop and ask, "What did you plant?" Let's keep going. Number 5. Cosmos. If there were an award for the easiest flower to grow, cosmos would always be near the top. In fact, many gardeners accidentally make them perform worse by trying too hard. Rich soil. Heavy fertilizer. Constant feeding. It sounds helpful, but cosmos see those conditions as an invitation to grow leaves instead of flowers. Place them in average garden soil with plenty of sunshine, and they completely change their strategy. Instead of producing endless foliage, they begin covering themselves with blooms. It's nature's way of saying, if conditions aren't perfect, it's time to make seeds. And that means flowers, lots of them. By late summer, their tall, airy stems sway with every breeze, giving the entire garden movement instead of just color. Butterflies seem unable to resist them. Bees visit constantly. And because each flower opens at slightly different times, the display continues for weeks. Here's one trick experienced gardeners use. Every few days, cut a handful of blooms for the house. It feels like you're reducing the display. In reality, you're encouraging even more flowers to replace them. Sometimes harvesting actually makes the garden fuller. But the next flower doesn't just fill your garden with color. It quietly protects the plants growing beside it. Number 4. French marigolds. Most people grow marigolds because they're cheerful. Bright yellows. Deep oranges. Rich reds. They bloom quickly and seem almost impossible to kill. But that's only half the story. Beneath the soil, French marigolds are doing something most gardeners never see. Their roots naturally release compounds that help reduce populations of certain root knot nematodes, microscopic pests that damage the roots of many vegetables. That means while you're enjoying months of flowers, your tomatoes, peppers, beans, and other nearby plants may also benefit. Talk about earning your place in the garden. Another reason they deserve a top ranking is their incredible heat tolerance. While many flowers begin looking tired during the hottest weeks of summer, French marigolds often keep blooming as though nothing has changed. And the more faded flowers you remove, the more new buds appear. It's one of the simplest maintenance routines you'll ever perform. Just a few minutes every week can keep them blooming until frost. But don't get carried away with fertilizer. Too much nitrogen creates lush green plants, with surprisingly few flowers. Full sun. Moderate watering. A little patience. That's all they really ask for. Now here's where the countdown becomes difficult. Because the next 3 flowers could easily trade places depending on your gardening goals. But one of them grows faster than almost anything else on this list. Number 3. Sunflowers. There are flowers that decorate a garden. And then there are flowers that completely transform it. Sunflowers belong in the second group. They don't simply bloom. They create an experience. Children stop to look. Neighbors slow down as they walk past. Birds gather long before the seeds even mature. Bees work from sunrise until evening. Few flowers create so much life around them. Many people believe it's too late to plant sunflowers in July. That's true for giant late-season varieties. But fast-maturing cultivars are a completely different story. Warm soil gives them an incredible head start. Instead of sitting underground waiting for warmth, they begin growing almost immediately. Within weeks, sturdy stems rise above surrounding plants. Soon after, large flower heads begin turning toward the sun. It's one of the fastest transformations you'll ever watch in a garden. If you're growing them for bouquets, harvest them just before the flowers fully open. If you're growing them for wildlife, leave the mature seed head standing. By autumn, goldfinches, chickadees, and other birds will happily harvest the seeds for you. Just remember one important thing: freshly planted sunflower seeds are irresistible to squirrels and birds. Protect the planting area during the first week if possible. That small effort often makes the difference between a full row of towering flowers, and wondering where all your seeds disappeared. Now here's the exciting part. We've reached the final 2. These aren't just beautiful flowers. They are the ones most likely to convince people that July is actually one of the best planting months of the entire year. We've finally reached the last 2 flowers. If you've stayed with me this far, you've probably noticed something surprising. None of these flowers succeeded because they needed expensive fertilizers, complicated techniques, or perfect growing conditions. In fact, many of them performed better when gardeners simply stopped trying to improve nature. And these final 2 flowers prove that lesson better than anything else on this list. Number 2. Zinnias. If someone asked me to recommend just one flower for instant color, zinnias would always be near the top. Few annuals grow as quickly, few produce as many blooms. And few continue flowering as faithfully from late summer until the first frost. July is actually one of the best times to sow them. The warm soil acts like a green light. Instead of waiting through cool spring temperatures, the seeds wake up almost immediately, often sprouting within just a few days. By the time many gardeners think the season is winding down, your zinnias are only getting started. Then the butterflies arrive. Monarchs. Swallowtails. Painted ladies. The garden suddenly feels alive. Every bloom becomes a landing pad for pollinators. And the more flowers you cut for bouquets, the more the plants produce. It's one of the rare flowers that rewards you for bringing it indoors. Here's another reason experienced gardeners love zinnias. They're available in almost every color imaginable. Soft whites, bright oranges, deep reds, hot pinks, lime green, rich purples. You can create an entire flower garden using nothing but different varieties of zinnias. But there's one mistake you should avoid. Don't crowd them together. Good airflow helps reduce powdery mildew and keeps plants healthier throughout the season. A little space today means many more flowers tomorrow. Now we've reached the flower that earned the #1 spot. It isn't the tallest. It isn't the flashiest. But when you consider beauty, speed, reliability, pollinator value, ease of growing, and the amount of color it produces, nothing else on today's list offers a better overall package. Number 1. Cosmos. If July had an official flower, this would be my choice. Cosmos seem to understand exactly what summer gardeners need. They're incredibly forgiving. They don't demand rich soil. They rarely complain about heat. They continue blooming when many other flowers begin slowing down. And somehow they make every garden look softer, fuller, and more natural. Watching cosmos move in a gentle breeze is almost as enjoyable as watching them bloom. The flowers seem to float above delicate green foliage like colorful butterflies suspended in the air. Pink. White. Magenta. Crimson. Even deep burgundy. Every breeze creates a different picture. But here's the secret that places cosmos at the very top of today's countdown. They actually reward restraint. Many gardeners spend years believing better gardens come from adding more fertilizer, more compost, more products, more attention. Cosmos quietly prove the opposite. Average soil. Full sunshine. Occasional watering during dry spells. That's often enough to produce hundreds of flowers. Nature has already designed them to succeed. Your job is simply not to get in the way. And because they bloom continuously, attract bees and butterflies, make excellent cut flowers, and often reseed themselves, one small packet of seeds can fill your garden with color not only this year, but for seasons to come. That's incredible value from one simple flower. Now, before you rush outside with your seed packets, remember the biggest lesson hidden inside this entire countdown. July isn't the end of planting season. It's the month when many gardeners stop paying attention. And that creates an opportunity. While everyone else is thinking about the season coming to an end, you can still fill empty spaces with fresh color, provide food for pollinators, create beautiful bouquets, and enjoy flowers long after many spring gardens have faded. The calendar doesn't decide when your garden is finished. The plants do. So don't let another warm week pass by without planting something new. Even one packet of seeds planted today could reward you with weeks of beautiful blooms before autumn arrives. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which flower are you most excited to plant this month? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one, and your suggestions often inspire future videos for this channel. If you enjoyed this countdown and found it helpful, consider subscribing because every week we share practical, science-backed gardening tips that make growing healthier, more productive, and more beautiful gardens easier than ever. Until next time, keep growing, keep experimenting, and remember, sometimes the best time to plant isn't when everyone else is planting. It's when everyone else thinks it's too late.